Excellent. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you guys for coming into the session. I think we're the second to last session of the day, right? Last day, second to last session. It's pretty impressive. So thanks for coming. I think it's a pretty good topic today, so I think you're going to enjoy it. Keep us all awake. Something that I'm very passionate about. So today's topic is Facebook development with ASP.NET and Microsoft Azure. My name is Nick Pinheiro. I'm a cloud and software architect at Microsoft. I work specifically in a team that we call the Azure Applications COE, so Circle of Excellence. So what we do within the team is we take on some of the more challenging projects that come our way within the industry. So right now we just finished up, for example, the Rio 2016 Olympics, the web app and the API that powers that, all the Facebook integration with Azure AD B2C, business to consumer. Previous to that, we did a large project for Real Madrid, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with. So with their 400 million fans, we have a full cross-platform solution that we put in place for that. Also using Azure AD B2C, Facebook integration, Azure AD, Google accounts, etc. And then a number of different other types of projects. Right now I'm working with McKesson, which is Fortune number 5. They're doing a lot of migrations over to the Azure cloud as well. So pretty cool stuff. So it's a kind of a elite team within Microsoft, so it's the Azure Application COE, so pretty cool stuff. I particularly focus in on the Azure App Service, so web apps, mobile apps, API apps, and logic apps. I have done a lot of custom SaaS build-outs, so custom SaaS solutions for a lot of our clients, and a big passion of mine is Facebook app development. Aside from all the integration points that we have within Azure, and all the projects that we work on, I personally have been working on, along with the engineers at Facebook, on a platform to create Facebook apps as a service. So if you're an individual who has no technical skill set, no technical background, but you want to have a socially integrated app of some form, you'll be able to eventually go onto this platform, subscribe as you would to get a fan page today, and you'll actually be able to get a fan app. So that's coming in the future, so pretty cool. So Facebook apps as a service, so that's coming on. It's going to all be powered by Azure as well. So probably see that at the beginning of next year or so, at least the first version. I'm based out of Cambridge, Massachusetts, USA. Contact information is actually pretty important today. There is a code base that I'm going to be introducing today that we're not going to actually get too deep into because there's a lot of content here today. So if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, or you can subscribe to my email list on my web address, nick-pinheiro.com. I'll be doing two things. Everyone who attended today will get this Facebook solution framework that we're going to be introducing, as well as the associated ebook that's going to be coming out towards the end of the year, which this deck is kind of a presentation of. Okay, so you'll get a free copy of that ebook as well. So you can either just follow me on Twitter or subscribe on my website, nick-pinheiro.com. And I'll have these all the way at the end of the deck as well, in case you don't catch it right now. All right, so today's mission, right? So Facebook's mission statement is to give people the power to share and make the world more open and connected. I'm sure you've all heard that. Microsoft's is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. I'm sure you've probably heard that as well. So my mission, though, today is to empower every attendee of this session to give people the power to share and make the world more open and connected. Sound good? Yeah, I just kind of combined it, made it a cool little sentence. So basically what we're going to be doing is covering all the touch points that we have with the Facebook platform across Microsoft Azure, ASP.NET, and anywhere within the Microsoft technology stack to show you how you can easily get a full Facebook integrated solution up and running, literally within minutes, using this Facebook solution framework that we're going to be releasing, and get up and running as well with Azure. Just a quick level set. How many people are working on Azure right now, today? Excellent. You guys doing mostly web apps and things of that sort? MVC, web forms, right? Anyone using Azure AD? Had a session on Azure AD yesterday. Okay, cool. Awesome. Perfect. This will be excellent for you guys then. So the session objectives and takeaways, this was just on the website. Understand the various integration points, as I mentioned, of the Facebook platform with Microsoft Azure. Learn how to leverage the Microsoft Azure for Facebook integration with the complete Azure App Service, right? So with web apps, mobile apps, API apps, and logic apps. And then learn to work with the newly released Facebook Solution Framework. The Facebook Solution Framework is a Visual Studio solution that has essentially one of each one of the app service components, along with a SQL database schema that uses ASP.NET Identity, a Logic app PowerShell script, Microsoft Flow integration, a WebJob to integrate Bing News into your Facebook solution as well. So it's a pretty extensive solution that's up and ready to go. All right, so for the agenda, we'll talk a little bit about what the modern app is in today's day. The Facebook platform, the Facebook solution framework we just mentioned. We'll look at Facebook login and the many, many options you have there and which one's really best for the different type of solution you're trying to build. The Facebook Graph API. We'll look at publishing to Facebook and publishing to pages as well, to fan pages. How many people have worked at all with the Facebook platform today? Either using just Facebook login, okay, just the login mechanism, or using mostly the JavaScript SDK, or, right, mostly? Okay, cool. The Azure App Service, again, we'll look at security. Security we'll look at from a number of different angles. Again, related to Facebook login, but also related to the API app and how you can secure the API app that's going to be available to you. The Facebook solution framework that we're going to be talking about, the value proposition with that is it'll allow you to have a full cross-platform integrated solution versus just having, for example, an ASP.NET web app that you have secured with Facebook login that you just went into the web config and put in your client ID and client secret, or you have a mobile app that, it's either using UWP or it's iOS or it's Android and you're not using Xamarin yet. So this is going to be a full solution framework that you enter your client ID, client secret in one location, it powers up an API app, powers up a web app, powers up a web job, powers up everything that you need without having to go and manage each one individually. So that's kind of a void that we had prior, right? So today, if you go into Visual Studio, you create a new web app, you create it there. You go into Microsoft Azure and you want to secure a web app, and you enter your client ID, client secret there, right? So this kind of brings everything together and allows you to basically spin up a new Xamarin cross-platform application as well with a complete Facebook integration. And we'll talk about how that happens. All right, so the modern app. So just for us to define the modern app, and anyone chime in as you would. And another thing too, just during the whole session, any questions, feel free to ask them as we're going through it, rather than waiting to the end in case we have any time sensitivity. So the modern app is essentially cloud first, mobile first, right? Based, cloud developed, cross-platform on all three platforms. Web-enabled, you're probably going to have a mobile-friendly version of your application. Social login of some sort, no matter how you incorporate it, you're probably going to have social login of some sort. Integration with other REST APIs, whether you're pulling data from a YouTube or from an iTunes or from Instagram or whatever the case is. JSON payloads, right? Personalization, you're going to have personalization, whether you're using information that's coming back from the Facebook Graph API, if you're creating your own graph within your application, but you're going to have some level of personalization for the user. We talked about the responsive nature of it with a mobile-friendly version. And then you'll have notifications and push notifications. Anything that I missed that you guys think should also be on this list? Right? That's pretty much the modern app today, correct? Yeah. So this just kind of highlights that a little bit more as well. So, right, so websites, mobile, integration, API, and notifications. Building apps today is basically what we're looking at. All right, so the Facebook platform. So these are, whenever someone comes up to me and says, how do I get started? I always kind of give these first 7 steps to get them associated with the platform and kind of understand how to go about, spinning up a small application that uses the JavaScript SDK and allows them to do things like use Facebook login or any one of the sharing components or whatnot. So you familiarize yourself with their platform's mission, decide on your application type, you go ahead into the developer portal, you create your Facebook ID, you get familiar with the Graph API Explorer. A lot of people use the Explorer, the Graph API Explorer. We'll be looking at it. Good. Understand access tokens. This is when you get down a little bit deeper and look at OAuth and understand what permissions come with the access tokens. Select the programming language that you're going to be going with, and then implement Facebook login. One note on the programming language piece. Up until about 2 years ago, we being at Microsoft, had the Facebook C# SDK. I don't know if anyone had used it. Have you used it before, or at least aware of it? So that was an internal team who kind of took it upon themselves to create a community project for themselves, and then they just kind of left it there and really haven't managed it or updated it since. So that's where I'm picking up and have created now the Facebook Solution Framework there's a full library in the solution framework that you'll be able to use, even if you don't want to use the entire solution framework. So you can use the full C# library that's in there to do things like pulling user information, posting, publishing back, publishing to fan pages, et cetera. So just to kind of give you a sense of where that's going. We're also working with the people at Facebook to get the solution framework on the developer portal, on the Facebook developer portal, so that it'll be linked to there as well soon. So this is the Graph API Explorer. For those who haven't worked with it, this is available to you via the Facebook developer portal, developers.facebook.com. This essentially will automatically provide you with an access token and allow you to run any queries that you want against your own user profile at Facebook, right? So you'll be able to pull up information like your Facebook ID, the name, first name, last name, your location, gender, birthdays, etc. Keep in mind that when you're pulling up this information, you're doing it as yourself when you go in there, so you have access to everything. From a programmatic perspective, when you go and integrate this into your app, right, you're going to have to use what's called scopes to request permissions to users' data. And then when you request those endpoints, you're going to have to use the access token that you got back for that user as well. So we'll go into that in a little bit. Don't have to worry about it too much. But if you never have used the Graph Explorer, very great tool. Just go to developers.facebook.com/tools/explorer. Your first foray at kind of getting a sense of what type of data you can get back from Facebook. And it's essentially anything. Anything that you see on Facebook, you can get back from the Graph API, whether it's photos or different things from the fan pages that you like, or you name it, you have access to it. All right, so again, the first step would be you go ahead and create your Facebook app, again, at their developer portal. Very, very simple. It's literally one form. You're entering the display name of what your app's going to be, a contact email address, and you create the app ID. Literally for the solution framework, that's all you're going to need is your app ID, your client ID, and your client secret to power up the solution framework. Moving forward, as you get more and more involved in your development, and if you start using things like Facebook login and start using other products that come with the developer platform, you'll have to do a number of additional things to get access to those objects. We'll talk about login review. Anybody used login review yet? No? Okay, so login review, which we'll talk about shortly, is essentially when you want to push data to Facebook from your app. So if someone creates some level of post on your app and you want to post that to Facebook immediately, you have to go through a process that's called login review. And we have a slide on that shortly. So the solution framework that I've given the acronym FSF. So from this point forward, we'll call it FSF. All right, so this is what the solution framework includes. This is the key of the solution framework. Again, it's a Visual Studio solution. You have at its core is a web app that already has Facebook login already created. All right, I'm already integrated into it. You have the API app. The API app is what you would use for your mobile portion of your solution, right? So you can use Xamarin, or you can use any platform of your choice when you're creating the mobile application. But this is where your actual API integration will come from. And this will be secured with Azure AD, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So we talked about the web app, we talked about the API app. You'll have an Azure SQL database where you'll store all your user information and anything else that's specific to your solution. This already has the ASP.NET Identity Schema built into it, and the API as well as the web app. So all the actual applications go through the API app, and that interfaces with the Graph API of Facebook. Okay, and then all your user information is stored here. The mobile app we have in there, but it's not necessarily a requirement. So this is an Azure mobile app which provides you with a mobile backend as a service within Azure. So if you want to do things such as push notifications, you want to do things such as have your users stored in what's called easy tables in Azure, which is a very easy way to get up and running. A lot of people opt for one reason or another that they want an Azure mobile app. Keep in mind, all this exists in Azure as well. But we put it in there just in that case that you find a feature within mobile apps that you like a little bit better. And if nothing else, you'll definitely use it for push notifications, for sure. Okay, we have script for the Logic app to create Logic apps in Azure. Anyone familiar with Logic apps? Yeah, to some extent? So Logic apps is a new tool set that we have within Azure, which allows you to do essentially two things. You can create your own workflows between different service providers, whether it be a Facebook or a Salesforce or a SQL database that you have, or Oracle or SAP or whatever the case is. And let's say you just want to have a pretty simple workflow that pulls data from SAP and pushes it over to Oracle. You can get those running directly in Azure. The content, the data doesn't need to live in Azure, but all that logic will live in Azure, and then you can schedule it and have it run on a scheduled basis. So those are logic apps. So we have a few logic apps already set up for you to push data to Facebook and to pull data to Facebook, which runs on a scheduled basis. So I'll show you some of those shortly. All right, so that's everything. So Xamarin will be releasing, so just to kind of give you a time frame on things. The FSF will probably release at the end of the week next week, and then probably a few weeks later than that, we're going to be adding Xamarin to it. So once we add Xamarin to it, then you'll have the full cross-platform capabilities there for web, mobile, and cloud. Any questions on this before I move forward? No? Okay.
Just a quick one though. I mean,
sure.
When you say FSF, I mean, basically this is all like, I see like they're all building blocks already available in Azure.
Right. But, exactly. However, FSF is already completely, so you have already logic in here. You already have code in here that's all specific to Facebook. So this is for a mobile or web solution that's going to be completely using Facebook login and any Facebook functionality that you may need. So these are all available individually, but this is kind of an a la carte type solution readily available to you where you can just download it from GitHub, open it right up, put in your client ID, client secret, and you have a full web solution, mobile app solution that's completely cross-platform on Xamarin. You have already scenarios where you can start pulling content into your app using Azure as well, using the Bing search API for news, et cetera. So it's completely Facebook targeted. Whereas, yeah, you could go in and say, I want to create a web app. Oh, yeah, I want to create a web job for this. I want to start my API app from scratch. But then you have to do all that work from scratch. So this talks directly to the Facebook library that we also have here. That's actually, we need to add that icon here.
Facebook-centric.
It's Facebook-centric, exactly. And then here's the high-level goal of it all, right? So today we have 1.65 billion users in Facebook, right? So we need to start making use of that data, of that information. So at the highest level, it's how do you capture all that information and bring it into your own SQL database and start building your own business of some sort, whether it be an online community that you're creating, or whether it be an app of any sort, or it's an Uber, or it's a this, or it's a that, whatever the case is. It's just the building blocks are already there for you, so you don't have to do all the legwork of understanding how to work with the platform and spend 6 months to a year trying to figure it all out. And honestly, a lot of this came from a lot of the pain that I went through, the blood, sweat, and tears of figuring everything out, and then saying, hey, why aren't we just offering this as a open source offering for people? It's going to drive consumption on Azure. It's going to get them up and running on Facebook much easier. It's what everybody wants. Eventually we'll start integrating other things as well, other platforms. LinkedIn, we just acquired LinkedIn. So we may have LinkedIn incorporated into it or have a separate one for LinkedIn as well, a LinkedIn solution framework. So this is what FSF will look like today, right? So when you open up the Visual Studio solution, you're going to get your API app. You're going to get a test project with all the unit tests that are already built in. Again, on Facebook platform is where the new C# library is for all the integration points with Facebook. So again, if at the least you didn't even want to use all the other components, you can save a whole lot of time just using the C# library. It's completely up to date. It uses version 2.7 of the Graph API of Facebook, whereas that C# SDK is pretty out of date at this point. It's about 2 years old, and it's not being updated anymore. You have your models, basically, so all your objects that come in from Facebook, again, whether it's the user profile, whether it's a photo album, whether it's, you name it, we have everything in there. Your SQL database already has, again, the ASP.NET identity schema. So behind the scenes, if you want to take care of authorization for your solution, you can use ASP.NET identity. You'll be using authentication, you'll be using Facebook login, authorization, ASP.NET identity. You have your web app, which is an ASP.NET MVC web app, already with Facebook login all powered up for you from the FSF, not from the web app itself. And then the web job. What we did is added a cool web job in that, I don't know if anyone has heard of the new cognitive API services that we have. It's kind of a big name for a smaller scenario that we have. But basically, it's the Bing search APIs that we have within there. So you can get the Bing News on any topic that you want. You just go into the configuration as well, enter the topic that you're interested in, and that web job will run every 6 hours and bring that information and display it in your web app, and it'll post it to a Facebook fan page of your choice in an automated fashion. Question, sure. Sorry?
Is the web app built on AngularJS?
No, this is just standard ASP.NET MVC. Yeah, yep. So what we'll see as well is that it posts a preview of that news article to your fan page, and then it also publishes it to your web app or your mobile apps. So it's just one way of getting content in there that, you don't have to go figure out how to work with that API, and it's already works for you, and it works in such a way that you won't hit the limits where you have to start paying for it. So that's why it runs every 6 hours, et cetera. So immediately you'll have some content that you can get up and running in your web app, and it's pretty cool. So we're going to look at a case study that we've built out at the end of the deck. It's called MSDevz, M-S-E-D-V-Z, MSDevz. That's coming out as well next week with the solution framework. So it's a sample solution built using the solution framework. So it's an online community, completely integrated with Facebook. Okay, you log in with Facebook. Anything that you comment on, any post that you do gets that's pushed back to Facebook. So it creates what's called that viral loop to show you how you can create a number, how you can get a large number of users at a fairly quick pace by creating that viral loop. There's a mobile app for it as well that's coming out on iOS, Android, and Windows, UWP. So it'll kind of give you a sense, and there's a fan page already is getting all that news coming from Bing as well. And then you click on it, it takes you to msdevz.com, where you can read the full article. Pretty cool. And then moving forward, if you want to do more things with that, for that web job, for example, one idea that I just had earlier is Facebook just released a new feature, I forget the exact name of it right now, but it has to do with stories, I believe it's called. Basically, it's an RSS feed that your news articles get published on the Facebook platform. So if you're in someone's feed, you click on it, and it opens directly up in Facebook. It opens directly in Facebook rather than having to go to your web app to view the actual information. So it's pretty cool. So you could use it for that as well. So Facebook login. So the benefits of Facebook login, I'm sure everyone pretty much knows about these, but we want to make sure that we talk about them. So you don't have to deal with credentials, right? So all those credentials are stored at Facebook. All the security and privacy and concerns kind of go away, all the SSL and everything. You really don't have to worry about if you don't want to. Your back end only stores the email address as the username as in ASP.NET Identity. All right. The client only manages the access token at runtime. So you get an access token at login time that has a time to live of 60 minutes. You can, however, request an extended access token if you'd like that lasts for 60 days. Okay, so if you have any reason within your app where you need to have a longer TTL time to live than 60 minutes, you can get an extended access token. So we just did a pretty cool solution. We released a solution that's called Imagine Care. It's an iOS app that kind of reimagines how we'll look at health and wellness in the future. That's why I have the Apple Watch on. You guys probably saw that. I was up. This guy works for Microsoft. He's got an Apple Watch on, right? Yeah. So we actually did a project. It was a joint project between Microsoft and Apple. We just released it. It's in the App Store now. It's called Imagine Care. And what it is that it essentially captures a number of different vitals from your ongoing day. And it's really targeted towards individuals who might have any type of health issues, cardiac issues, whatever the case is. But basically what it does is it's an IoT-based solution that all the information that's captured from your health app, right? So your steps or your blood pressure or whatever the case is, your heart rate, I'm sorry. And then we also have Bluetooth blood pressure monitors and scales that are all Bluetooth-based. And all that information just continuously keeps on going up, pushing up to the cloud. And then we have an interface where your physician can have real-time access to your ongoing telemetry. So they can see, well, Nick's heart rate, he was speaking the other day, his heart rate went up a little bit or what's going on, whatever the case is. But so this is the first version of the app. It's called Imagine Care. And it's kind of the next phase of where we're going with at the Azure IoT Hub, with smartwatches, with that level of telemetry where we can capture all that kind of data in the cloud and really be able to analyze it on a real-time basis. So if you ever have a chance, check. I know, right? I know, exactly. It was sponsored by a very big hospital in USA, and they wanted to go iOS first. So we were like, all right, it'll be in the Azure cloud though. So that's why we did all the integration with Apple. Yeah, so the core advantages of social login is pretty straightforward for everyone. Again, this is just a Gigia report that was done, I think, a year or two back, just looking at the different social providers and social login and which one was obviously doing the best. Facebook was at over 50%, almost in Q1 of 2015. So at 61% of all social logins. This is your standard kind of OAuth handshake. Anyone familiar with OAuth? Worked with OAuth? Yeah? Oh, good, good. So everyone pretty much knows the process and the handshake that you go through, getting a code, requesting an access token from that code. Yeah, working with scopes. We'll talk about scopes in a little bit. So everyone's pretty familiar with that. So here's your data flow diagram of the process you go through. Again, so if you've worked with OAuth, you're probably calling back information from the Graph API at some point. So basically, you go through your OAuth process. You're able to capture the Facebook user data immediately once you receive that access token. By default, you're able to get the ID, first name, last name, the link to their user profile, their username, their gender, their locale. Email requires a scope permission, okay? You don't have to go through login review. We'll talk about login review, but the user will receive a pop-up that says, MSDevz is requesting access to your public profile and email address. I'm sure you've seen those often. You may have not known how that works in the background, but what you do need login review for, and we'll talk about the login review process, is publish actions. So publish actions is a scope which publishes your content back to Facebook. And for that, the user has to be well aware that they're giving access to your app to do that when they do anything in your app. The process to get approved for that has become more and more difficult. In the past, it just was, I'm using publish actions, and they'd be notified of it. They wouldn't really do anything, but they would know that your app ID is using publish actions. Now, you actually have to submit a video screen capture, go into your web or mobile app, show exactly where publish actions is being used. It has to, the rules stipulate that you have to show that exactly at the bottom that this will be published to Facebook. And then you cannot automate, and once you do get that permission for your app, you cannot automate anything on it. So let's say, one thing that I was doing, so a user would come in, and I would say, hey, I just joined, and I would post back to their feed saying, I just joined, I being the user, just joined this particular app. And it would post an image to their news feed, and then it would create that viral loop, and people would keep on coming in and coming in and coming in. Before you know it, first day you have 1,000 users. So you can still do that, but they just need to know that that's getting posted back to their feed. So that's where login review comes in. So immediately after OAuth, and you have the access token, you can get the Facebook user data. What we do basically on the back end is we check if the user is already a user in ASP.NET Identity. If they are not, we create a new user using the ASP.NET Identity API. If they are, we just go ahead and log in the user. And basically at that point, they're in the app. And now you have all the information stored in the database. You have an access token that is persisted. That's another thing. The access token does get persisted. So if you need to call upon that access token for something again, you don't have to go and request it from Facebook. Then use the access token. So we do an extended access token for 60 days, and then it's persisted in the database. So you don't have to make all those calls back and forth. The social login options that you have today. So we kind of talked about how you do have the ability to just create a standard ASP.NET web app project out of Visual Studio, right? Select that you want to use social login. Go grab your client ID and your client secret for Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft account, and whatnot, Google. And that's good, but it's specific to that web application, right? So one limitation. We talked about the Facebook C# SDK, which is not being updated anymore, so really not an option anymore. Azure Web Apps. You can go publish a web app to Azure, and then again, go into the settings of that web app in Azure, enter your client ID, client secret. That'll secure it to Facebook. It'll just secure the entire application. There's really no authorization, though, that would allow you to have roles or anything like that in your application. Another limitation. Azure B2C. Awesome option. Did anyone know much about Azure B2C? No? Okay, I had a talk on it yesterday. So Azure B2C is a new version of Azure AD that was just released that is specifically for consumer-based scenarios. So B2C, business to consumer. With Azure B2C, you basically go into Azure, you create a new domain, a new Azure AD domain. There's one checkbox that says, I want this to be a B2C domain. the difference there's a few different differences, but the major difference there is that once you select that option and it provisions it, it creates all your identity management features for you behind the scenes. So those identity management features being your forgot password, reset password process, your social login for you. So Azure AD does not have social login built into it. B2C does for Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, and the Microsoft account. And you can use Azure AD as well if you want to have you can call that. You can brand that. Let's say we're doing an app that's called App X, and you say, okay, you can log in with social or create an account with us. So that account with us is actually Azure AD in the background, right? So that's B2C. Very, very cool option, but it costs a little bit of money. So up to 50,000 users is free, and then after that, once you get up to around 100,000, it already becomes $50 a month. Again, it's completely customizable. One good example of that is Real Madrid. We just work with Real Madrid and we use Azure B2C. So if you just go on realmadrid.com or you download the Real Madrid app, you'll see that they're using all social. And if you actually look at their login, you'll see that it's Azure. You'll say .onmicrosoft.com, even though you might select login with Facebook or you select login with Google, or whatever the case is. So a great option, but again, a little pricey, right? OAuth 2.0, so you could do just core OAuth 2.0 if you wanted to write it out. That's essentially what we've done with the solution framework, and that's what you have in the Visual Studio solution there. And then now we have Facebook Solution Framework, where this you can essentially download, enter your client ID, client secret for Facebook, and you're up and running fully cross-platform. Permissions, we just talked about scopes, so I won't spend too much time on it. But again, the key thing to understand here is, for example, on this example, we're requesting, in addition to the public profile, which comes without any request for scopes, we're requesting here email, the user location, and publish actions. User location and publish actions both require login review. So we would have to go into the developer portal, okay? Once you create your Facebook app ID, you can start pulling that information from your test users, and you create those test users, they're fake users, or your own account that's the owner of the app ID, and you can pull that information. Once you want to make your app go live, then when users try to access your app, that option won't even come up. So you have to go through the login review process and get that approved before you can actually start pulling that data. So just keep in mind that there is that login review process. It typically comes up when you want an app to go live and they're like, oh my God, I forgot we didn't go through login review yet, and so the app can't go live. So, and that process usually takes about a week. Facebook gives it a week. They usually do it within 48 hours, 48, 72 hours, but they stipulate 1 week. So you see here, we're requesting email, user location, and publish actions. So just something to keep in mind. So this is the sample solution that I talked about, MSDevz. Again, so this is all things for the Microsoft developer all in one place. Okay, so it's a full socially based online community that we're going to be releasing. We call it Powered by Aggregator. So Aggregator is the service that we have running in the background. It's basically that web job that pulls in all data. So this actually is going to be pulling in information from Facebook, Bing, Instagram, iTunes, and Amazon. So we give you Bing in the Facebook Solution Framework, but it's to give you a sense of what you can do if you want to start building more things around that. So basically what we do is, for example, with Instagram, we're pulling the hashtag C# hashtag and pulling in all that content. From Facebook, it's all the user content. So you'll see everybody's user profile pictures. They'll have their own profile page, etc. From iTunes, it's podcasts. So all the podcasts that are related to Microsoft, Microsoft Azure, Visual Studio, anything development related. Amazon, books. So for example, if you're looking for a reason for an app and you want to try and see how you can make some money on that, both iTunes and Azure provide affiliate marketing programs where if you sell something off of your app, you get 7% of that sale immediately. So it's a good way to start up making a little bit of money once you start building a little bit user base. So I said Facebook, Bing, Instagram, iTunes, and Amazon. Yep, so those 5. So this will be coming out within a week or so. And this is just to show what's happening here. So remember on the previous example, we were requesting the scopes, email, and location. So here, when you get this pop-up, you'll see MSDevz will receive your public profile, email address, and current city. So that's where those came from, is from those 2 scopes. Here, this is the second pop-up you'll get. This one's saying, MSDevz would like to post to Facebook. Do you want to share these posts? So basically, you can select also, you, the end user, can select if any post that comes from MSDevz, if you only want to share it with friends or the complete public. Yeah. So that's just to get an understanding of where those scopes come into play. And you've probably seen them before, but just didn't know how they were powered. Access tokens we just talked about, but basically connects with an app using Facebook login. The app will be able to obtain an access token which provides temporary secure access to Facebook APIs. It can be used by the app to make Graph API calls, obtained via a number of methods, and then it has an expiration to it. And then again, you can get an extended token, which will last 60 days. This is the method in the C# library in FSF. So as I mentioned, the code is all there already for you. Okay. Once you power up the API app, you can see everything that's being pulled from the C# library. So again, we have all the core methods that you would need, right? So to request an access token, to get an extended access token, to get a user profile information from the Graph API, publishing to Facebook, publishing to fan pages, which is different, getting photo album information, posting photo album information. So all that is already there for you. Rather than open up Visual Studio and everything, because I knew we were going to have limited time, I put the majority in the slides. So the Graph API, again, here's the get user method. It's all there using HTTP client, uses async processing. So that's all there and ready to go. You don't have to worry about that. Publishing to Facebook, again, we talked about the scopes that are required. The use of the publish action scopes requires login review. So just again, keep that in mind. There is a little process, and you do have to have a method of doing a video screen capture and uploading that video to the developer portal. And then you're looking at probably about a 3-day turnaround. We talked about login review, but basically you understand what that is now. Always keep in mind that with asking for scopes, when you actually go look at the scopes that are available to you, you'll see that it's a long list like this. And always ask for the least amount of what you need, because typically that's the first thing that users see that kind of pushes them away from your app. When you're requesting the entire Facebook profile, it's like a security issue, and privacy is a big thing right now, so they automatically go away. So just request absolutely what you need. By default, I usually always ask for email, city, and publish actions, because that gives you a nice profile page that you can create. You already have the core user information that's coming. You have now their location, you have their profile picture, et cetera. So as you go along and you need things like birthday or gender, whatever the case is, if you absolutely need it, you can request it, but my recommendation would be just ask for exactly what you need. This is the endpoint that's used to post back to Facebook. So this is post to the feed. So this is graph.facebook.com/me/feed. And then it captures your access token, the link that you're publishing, if you're publishing a link, and the actual message. So this is the text. So these three parameters would be coming from your app in some way, shape, or form, right? So the access token we'd be getting from another method, the link saying, okay, this is the link I want to post, and this is the message that I want to post along with it. And you'll notice that the code is very, very clean and kind of easy to understand, so hopefully it's easy also to build off of. We talked about the automation of posts back to your Facebook page. So this is, and this you can like this page today. This is already up and running. MSDevz, the actual app, will go live next week, but the fan page is already up and running with news going every 6 hours. So I find it to be a really, really good resource. Obviously, we all look at different news outlets every day. There's the MSN app, there's this app, there's that app, there's the finance apps or whatever. But if you're a Microsoft developer, the keywords that we're using here are Microsoft, Microsoft Azure, Visual Studio, ASP.NET, C#, and a few others. So the news that I get here is like exactly what I want every single day. So it's going to be really cool when the iOS app and the cross-platform apps come out, and you can just look at MSDevz every day and check out your news and blog posts, and everything will come right in. I also use Feedly, and I've noticed that I'm actually getting more information. Yeah, Feedly is very good. So for those who haven't used Feedly, it's basically an RSS aggregator. But I've noticed that I'm getting better news on this daily than Feedly provides me with, because obviously Feedly is a manual process, right? I got to go in, set up the RSS feeds, et cetera. Yeah, right, exactly. Yep, same idea. So like I said, this is available now. You can like the fan page. It's just search for MSDevz with a Z at the end, and you can get this up and running. And then you'll get all the news too in regards to when the sample solution goes live, when the code is live, etc. So this is the code to post to the fan page. It's a little bit different. It's a different endpoint from posting as a user. So this requires a page access token, not a user access token. So you actually have to go in, when you create your fan page, you go into the Graph API Explorer, and there'll be a drop-down that shows all your pages. When you select your page, then it'll produce a page access token for you. And that's what you actually need to publish out to a fan page. It's a little bit different from just publishing out to the user, so keep that in mind. So that's the process you're going to need if you want to start using the news web job. Just go ahead, get your page access token. You come in, add it into the config settings within the FSF, and you're up and running. So Azure, just a little bit about Azure. I think everybody here pretty much has had some notion of what Azure is. It's our cloud computing platform. This is the diagram you particularly see most often everywhere, right? And it's getting to the point. Well, actually, we were at Tech Ready last week, which is our internal Microsoft conference, and there was a lot of complaints that we're using this because they're asking for something much more abbreviated. And so the marketing team came up with something that I used yesterday in one of the slide decks. But it's very, very high level, and it's not really computing-centric at all. It's just basically 4 pillars of transforming your business and empowering your clients and empowering your employees, et cetera. So you'll probably start seeing less of this. But basically, everything that we're using for FSF comes out of web and mobile. So that's the only reason why I put that there. Again, way bigger of a diagram than you need. Here's the Azure App Service. Again, we talked about that: web app, mobile app, API app, logic app, and what each one of them provides. So the web apps, you're able to scale them with your business. Mobile apps is basically a mobile backend as a service. So you'll be able to have your user data stored there, push notifications, etc. API apps automate business processes across SaaS and on-prem. People familiar with Swashbuckle yet in Swagger? You've used it? Anyone else? Swagger? Swagger? Okay, so we're going to look at Swagger shortly. So API apps will automatically contain a metadata definition language that will allow you to integrate with a number of other services that we have at Microsoft, and it's also now kind of the industry standard for APIs. So it allows you to integrate your APIs via a UI much faster, much easier, and not programmatically. So it sounds a little confusing, but we'll see it shortly. And then logic apps we talked about, which allow you to easily build and consume APIs in the cloud. We're also going to look quickly at Microsoft Flow. Anybody heard of Microsoft Flow yet? Literally just came out within the last month. And Power Apps as well.
I saw the Flow in the Office 365 apps.
Right, exactly. So we'll talk about that shortly. I have a slide on that. So security. So these are the current options that you have as it relates to membership and authorization with any one of your solutions that you might be building. So we're using identity in FSF. You still have simple membership. You still have old school membership. And you have Azure AD. This is just kind of the advantages of ASP.NET Identity. It's obviously our default identity provider for web applications right now. And we're also using it. You can also now use it for mobile, the way that FSF is set up. Okay, so it uses the API to basically create your users, uses the user store to manage your full identity there. That's just the difference between ASP.NET Identity and the older school membership tooling. So that's the schema for the database. You can see it's been cleaned up dramatically. Basically just all tables now, and everything is done through the API. No more stored procedures, etc. So you do have the ability to extend your profile properties of ASP.NET Identity, which is tied into Entity Framework. So when you start off with FSF and you begin to capture the Facebook user information, we already have the profile extended to capture that information to store it in ASP.NET Identity. If there's additional information you're going to start to want to make use of and request using scopes, you just have to make sure that you remember to come back in here and go into the model of the application user and just add in a new property for whatever it is that you're going to be bringing in. And you can always use the Graph API Explorer to see what payload you get back to understand what you need to add. So just a note about what you have to do. And all this is documented. Any steps that you might do outside of just downloading this and using it will be documented in GitHub. Azure AD, we kind of went and talked about it a little bit earlier. But Azure AD is your Active Directory in the cloud, identity as a service solution. Azure AD comes in 3 core flavors: free, basic, and premium. We had a full session on this yesterday, just kind of comparing and contrasting all the versions, including now Azure B2C. So the point of this is just to think that in the future, if you feel that Azure B2C is a more appropriate option for what you're working on, at least now you know that it exists. Again, there is a cost to it, but again, there is advantages there. You have your full identity management already built for you. Just basically customize it, and it's there, and you really don't have to do much about it. And you can start today. It's up to 50,000 users is free. So if you want to do for dev test scenarios, or even for small apps that you don't think will ever reach 50,000, but hopefully all our apps will reach in the billions, right? So just a note about that. So automation. So Azure WebJobs. People using WebJobs? To some extent? Yeah, WebJobs are pretty simple to use. WebJobs are essentially an Azure resource that we have that really all it is pushing out a executable or a PowerShell script or a batch file, whatever the case is, to the cloud and running it on a scheduled basis. So it's kind of the same idea as a scheduled task in Windows or Windows Server, and you just push it out, and it's just great. I mean, it's awesome. Extremely stable. So we're using WebJobs for pulling in that Bing News information for you, and that's running every 6 hours. So again, if you wanted to modify that, if you want to modify the time frame, if you want to go above and beyond what the throttle limits are on that API, you can do so. You can modify the time of the scheduled job. There's a JSON file in FSF that shows how often it runs. You just change the number of hours, and then you're good to go.
And can only hook up to Bing?
Right now, it's Bing. So I'm trying to push for us to do with MSDevz when it comes out, and you'll see all those 5 content providers. I personally would like to add them all in. But right now, it's just Bing that's going to be available in the web job. Yep. We talked about the web search API app. Again, so API apps, it's essentially built off of the web API framework. But again, the real big difference is the use of Swashbuckle and Swagger UI. And I have another deck on that. Another slide on that. So we talked about these here. I really want to get to the... All right, so securing your API app. Again, there is a PowerShell script in FSF to deploy everything that you need in Azure. So again, in the same fashion that you're just going to download the solution framework and be able to use it, you also run the PowerShell script against your Azure instance, and it creates all the resources for you. So when it creates those resources, it also creates an Azure AD and an Azure AD application object. That application object, the purpose of it is to secure your API app, okay? So that no one can hit any of the endpoints in your API app directly without having an access token from Azure AD. Okay, so that's the purpose of that. So when you see that, just so you know that's what it's used for. So basically, you'll have your own OAuth provider, just as Facebook has theirs. So this is a screenshot of what Swagger UI looks like. So this is looking at the API app endpoint for creating a new user in your app, right? So if you notice, this right here is the exact same JSON schema that you get from Facebook, okay? So basically, any one of the functions, any one of the methods, call this endpoint, pull the information from Facebook, grab the information, and put it in the database. Simple as that. So you'll notice here that pretty much everything maps directly to the JSON schema from Facebook, one-to-one. And again, for those who haven't developed an API as of yet or haven't used API apps, this is pretty cool because as you're building out your API, you can literally just run the API and Swagger UI will come up, and you can test your endpoints to make sure that they're doing what you're building out for them to do. So it's a very good thing. Before, this didn't exist prior, so you had to use different solutions. You had to use like Postman, things like that, right? So very, very good addition. Let me check how we're doing on time here. Oh, whoa, 350. Okay. All right, the Logic app, as I mentioned. So as we talk about all the different touch points that we have with Facebook within Microsoft Azure, Logic apps, as we talked about, is your kind of logical processing center within the Azure cloud. The data doesn't need to reside there, but the processing flow will be powered there. So there are already some kind of pre-built templates that you can use So let's say, for example, you post to Twitter and you automatically want it to post to Facebook, you can do that. Share my Instagram photos on Twitter. So if you post to Instagram, you automatically want it to go to Twitter, you can do that if you want to do that on a scheduled basis. Email yourself new tweets. So these are all just kind of to give you ideas of what you can possibly do with Logic Apps. The idea is that if you build an API app and it's using Swagger and using Swashbuckle, you can automatically power a Logic app that interacts with that API app. And you might have a SQL database or an SAP backend, Oracle, whatever the case is, and you can run that logic there. So Microsoft Flow, which we'll look at as well shortly. So again, just a reminder about FSF, the sample solution, MSDevz coming out. So it uses all the elements of the Facebook solution framework. So anything that you're going to see here when you log in can be done using FSF, with the exception of all the content providers that we're using. App that aggregates content from various content providers, as I mentioned, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Bing, iTunes, Amazon, and it uses Microsoft Flow as well. So how we use Microsoft Flow is pretty cool. So Microsoft Flow is basically a layer on top of Logic Apps. It's the kind of, the audience for that are individuals who really don't have any kind of development skill set or development background, who still want to kind of create core logic flows. So they would use Microsoft Flow. You can go to microsoftflow.com. This is now live. You don't have to go into Azure. You don't need to know how to work with Azure. And the majority of those logic apps that you saw on Azure are available on Microsoft Flow. And you just go in literally via the UI and you start running things. So what we're doing, for example, for MSDevz is whenever a YouTube video is posted to YouTube to the Azure channel, it automatically gets posted to the back end of FSF. So automatically shows up in MSDevz. Yeah. So no matter what we do there, right? So we're going to add that for a lot of channels. So basically, MSDevz is going to be like your one-stop shop, where everything Microsoft related, everything Microsoft developer related will automatically be there. So it's to give you an idea of how you can use Microsoft Flow. Again, this is available now, free. I have a few things running of it on my own. Like RSS to Facebook is pretty cool. Any RSS feed that's out there, that you want to post either to your user page or to a fan page without any code or anything, you can go ahead and power that right from Microsoft Flow.
It's the same like Logic Apps, but it's like outside Azure.
Exactly. I should have just said that, right? Yeah, exactly. A little bit of overlap, I agree. So resources, these are just things that are on my blog that kind of, from my blog, transpired into FSF. So if you want to just look at understanding how to get simple pieces of things that are in FSF running for yourself, you can definitely go there as well. So just Facebook login. If you want a Visual Studio solution that's just for Facebook login, it's there. If you want it just for getting a user's email address, it's there. Just for publishing to a fan page. So FSF, if you start with it, right, it's a big Visual Studio solution, there's a lot there. So if you want to kind of get yourself acquainted with each component, then I make those available as well. I think it was easier for me to do it that way as well. Yeah. Okay. Just some tutorials and videos that might be of use. I'll make sure this deck goes out to everybody. So understanding more about ASP.NET Identity, the MVC5 app with all the different social providers, and then building modern web apps is a Channel 9 video that we have out right now. So as I mentioned, this slide deck was basically an abbreviation of a full book that's coming out about everything that we discussed here today. So that's going to be coming out in a few months. There'll be, sample code. Obviously, FSF is going to be included there. I want to make sure that everybody who attended here today gets a free version of it. So if you just subscribe, you get a free ebook. If you subscribe to my mailing list, I will make sure they get that out to everyone who subscribes on today's date. All right, let's see what else we got. All right, so yeah, again, follow me on Twitter. I'm going to be posting all the information that's upcoming in the next week. So we have FSF. FSF, an early version of it is already on GitHub, as it is. The official version will be there next week. MSDevz is going to be coming out as well. A few weeks after that is the iOS, Android, and Windows versions of MSDevz. Then you have the book after that. So a lot coming. And again, just if you hadn't subscribed to get the ebook, you can do so as well. All right, thank you guys. Awesome. Any questions? We have a few more minutes left. Any other ones? But we had a lot of questions during the session, so anything else?
Small one.
Sure.
You actually register with the basic scope that you define, and later on, then when, for example, you modify the scope Again, you have to like submit the whole thing.
No. Oh, well, it depends on the scope that you're requesting. So each scope, yeah. So let's forget about FSF for a second. Let's say today I'm just requesting public profile and email, no login review. Then tomorrow I want publish actions, have to do login review. Then the day after I want to do location, I have to do login review again. Yeah, yeah. So one thing that I can kind of, some advice that I can kind of give, that any video that I've posted that worked to get approval, I just make sure that I'm as close to, as similar to that video that I had previously done when I upload it back to the developer site to make sure that I get approved again. But they pretty much, as long as you fulfill, and all the requirements are there, but the key thing is that they're looking out for is that they want to make sure that if something gets published back out to Facebook, that the user knows it's going to happen. That's the key thing. So as long as, so basically what I do is and you'll see that in MSDevz, basically underneath any type of form, it says, this will be posted to Facebook. And it has a Facebook logo on it as well. Yeah. Yeah. And then they can check that and uncheck it as well. So there's a checkbox of whether or not they want it to get posted. If they say this article stinks, some people are like, I don't want to read it or whatever, and they don't want that to be published out to Facebook, they can uncheck it and it won't use public actions.
This MSDevz is going to be like a thing that Microsoft is going to maintain to publish any information regarding the development?
Well, it's an aggregator. It's an aggregator. So they'll publish it out to their resources, but it'll eventually end up in MSDevz. Okay. So it'll be a cool resource to use where you don't have to worry about going to this blog or that blog or that blog or this YouTube channel or whatever, or channel 9.
At the moment, it's pretty dispersed.
Yeah, exactly. It's everywhere, right? So again, Feedly is like, I'm on it every day. I'm like, oh my God, so much content. Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Will the libraries be available on .NET Core?
Yes, they absolutely will. Definitely. Yep. Yep. Any other ones? Any other questions? Valuable information you guys found? Really? Cool. Awesome. Cool. Excellent. Thank you all. Have a safe trip back to wherever you're going. Thanks.